Hey guys, and welcome to another Python tutorial here on the Course Legacy channel. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Python Pickle Library. Okay, so the Pickle Library is a special and rather interesting library in Python used for object serialization. Object serialization is basically the concept of taking objects, okay, like lists or dictionaries or even integers and strings, and converting them to what we call a byte stream, which is basically a sequence of bytes. Okay, so the point of all this is the need for this actually arises when you want to save data. Okay, so for example, you have a very large application, okay, and you basically want to save your data somehow. Okay, you have stuff like a lot of strings, a lot of integers, and you have a lot of objects of custom classes. Okay, like for example, let's take a scenario where you have a student class, okay, and you maybe have 1,000 student objects, okay, for 1,000 different students. Now you want to save this data somewhere, okay, because you don't want to create those 1,000 student objects every time you run the program, right? So you want to save them somewhere, so the next time you want to use them, you can just load them right up, right? Because that's much faster. So basically, object serialization is the concept of taking these objects, converting them to a byte stream, and then we can save the byte stream to a file. Okay, because you can't save an object to a file. Like how are you going to take an object and write it to a file? You can't do that. If it's a string, then yeah, sure. If it's an integer, then yes, you can convert it to a string and then write it. But you can't convert, you can convert some things like a dictionary. Okay, you can't convert that to a string. So you can't write that normally to a file, to a text file. So again, this is where object serialization comes in, okay? And that's enough of an intro. There's still more to discuss about object serialization, how it works, and some other things that we can do with it, but we'll discuss those as we go along, okay? So I'm going to import Pickle, okay? Pickle is basically the library in Python that we'll be using for object serialization, okay? There are a few others, but Pickle is actually one of the most famous ones, okay? So we'll be using this. Make sure to download it if you haven't already, okay? If you're on Windows, it's just a simple pip install pickle, okay? So what I'm going to do here is first create a dictionary, okay? We'll just be using this example to start off, okay? And we'll move on to more complex cases and alternative methods as we proceed along with the video, okay? So I'll just, put in some random stuff over here, okay? We just want to basically serialize this, okay, to a file and then read it from that file, okay? So this is just some random stuff I'm coming up with over here, and yeah, okay, good. So basically, I'm going to take this dictionary and now put it into first I'll convert it to a byte stream and then take that byte stream and write it to a file. So let's go ahead and first open up a file stream. Okay, this is going to be done using regular Python file handling. Okay, so I'll write o file for output file and then use the open function. Okay, and the first parameter, as you all know, because file handling is a pretty basic concept, the first is going to be the file name, okay, or file path. I'm just going to save this in the same directory, so I'll just pass in the file name. Okay, the second thing is the mode. Okay, now this is typically W for write or R for read, okay, or A for append. But what we want to do here is write a binary data. Okay, W is for writing text, okay, for writing string data, but we want to basically write binary data. We're dealing with binary data over here, so I'm going to write WB. Okay, WB is for binary. Okay, similarly there's RB for reading binary data. Okay, so let's move on. Now the pickle this is where we use pickle. Okay, it's just a single line of code. It's pretty simple, but it's more necessary that you understand the concept behind it and what's going on and what you can do with this. Okay, because the syntax itself is simple. The concept, however, is a bit more complicated. Okay, so I'll use pickle.dump. Okay, that's what we basically call it. When we serialize something, we call it dumping. When we convert it back into an object, we call it loading. Okay, and you'll find this syntax used across other libraries as well, okay, like JSON. It also has the dump and load functions. And also one more thing, that when we're converting objects to byte streams in Python, we typically call it pickling. Okay, it's basically spelled like this, pickling. Okay, It's a pretty popular term, okay? And when we're converting it back, it's called unpickling, okay? Just letting you know the terminology used. So the dump function basically takes two parameters, okay? Two main parameters. The first one is the object that you want to serialize, which is myDict, okay? And the second one is basically the file, okay, the file stream. So in this case, it's OFile, output file. Okay, now that's it, we're done. Okay, I'm just going to use the ofile.close and we're done here. So we should now see this dictionary serialized, okay, once I run the program. Okay, done. No errors, so we should see this over here. I'm going to open this up actually. We won't be able to read it, not exactly, because it's binary data after all, and I'm using Notepad to basically show this. So we'll be seeing this in, basically this unreadable format over here. And yeah, it's pretty normal for it to be like this, so don't be surprised. Okay, I'm just showing you guys, what to expect. Okay, don't be freaked out and be like, hey, what is this? Okay, don't worry, it's all normal. Okay, so basically what I want to do now is read this data. Okay, so I'll create an I file, and by the way, this would typically happen in a separate program. Okay, we can just remove this now, and you know what, we'll go ahead and do that. I'll just go ahead and comment this out because we've already written the data. Okay, and I can even comment this out, by the way, because we don't need this anymore. We don't need any of this anymore. We've already saved the dictionary to the file, so we can just remove everything and just pretend like we're starting a new program that's going to read that data. So I'm going to open up the same thing, binary data, the same file, and mode will be RB, then ifile.load. Okay, sorry, I meant actually pickle.load, and this takes ifile, that's it, and this will return a single pickled object. Okay, now it's returning something, right? So I'm just going to store it in here. Okay, it basically returns that pickled object, and something to keep in mind is that this just returns a single pickled object. So if you had done this, like for example 3 times or 4 times, you would basically have to call this 3 or 4 times as well. So if you make 4 dumps, you need to basically make 4 loads as well to read all the data out. Okay, so basically, yeah, ifile.close, and you know what, let's go ahead and print out this dictionary. Okay, I'm pretty sure the dictionaries do get printed out. Yeah, there we go. See, that's it. This is object serialization, and we basically converted this mumbo jumbo over here in this file to actual code, to an actual Python object. Okay, and we didn't have to do anything. We just had to include these 2 lines over here, dump and load, and we're done. So that's pretty fascinating. So that was the intro, the basics. Okay, let's quickly move on now. Okay, I've explained the basis and how it works, so we'll speed up a bit now. Okay, I'm just gonna comment this out too. Sorry, and yeah. Now what I want to do basically is, let's just get that out, and we'll create a custom class called student. I mentioned this earlier. Okay, and parameters self, then name, then ID. Okay, let's just keep it simple. So self.name is equal to name, and self.id is equal to ID. Okay, and we'll make a display function. Okay, and this just prints out the name, okay, with a nice little prompt. And okay, and let's just leave some space in there, or actually we don't need to do that, just do ID like this. Okay, and self.id, good enough. Now what I'm going to do here is create a bunch of student objects, or you know what, let's just create a list and directly put in some student objects in here. Okay, so like Bob, I guess, and ID can be 1. That's 1 student. Let me just copy this over a few times, and we'll just change the values a bit. Okay, let's just keep 3 student objects. So 3, okay, this one can be called Jane, and this one can be student number 2. This one can be Sam. Okay, so basically we have 3 student objects in here. Now I want to serialize this. Okay, so I'll just copy over the same code over here. It's pretty much the same thing. Okay, open up the binary file, write data to it, just write my list this time, okay, and yeah, and over here, if I want to read it basically, or you know what, let's just run this once, okay, it's executed. Now I'm just gonna remove this or just comment it out basically, and I'm gonna come here, copy this over, create a new list. Okay, now what I'm going to do is iterate over this list. Okay, and since each of them should be a student object, okay, because we wrote basically this list with 3 student objects, so once I read it back, it should be a list with 3 student objects as well, and it should contain these exact same values. Okay, it should have Bob, Sam, and Jane all inside it. Okay, so once I call this, we should see these details printed out, and then we'll be sure that everything is working exactly how we want it to. Okay, so there we go. See, it's all working perfectly. This is exactly how we want it. Basically, it's all working the way we want it to. Okay, so pretty good. Okay, so let's just remove all this. Let's just start anew. Okay, and what I want to do, okay, actually hold on, I just want to keep this list. Okay, I just want to show you guys one more thing, because you may not want to be dealing with file streams all the time. Okay, because you may not always want to save it in a file or read it from a file. What if you want you want a way to basically convert it to byte stream within the code, and also convert it back within the same code, or something like that, or whatever. Okay, I'm just going to teach you guys those functions. Okay, you might find them useful, maybe not. Okay, so basically, how do I put this? Pickle dumps, and by the way, this will also help me show you guys something interesting. Just watch. Okay, I'm using dumps instead of dump. Okay, dumps just takes a single parameter. Okay, if you remember correctly, dump took 2 parameters. Okay, it took the object and the file stream as well. Dumps just takes a single parameter, which is basically the file that you want to convert to a byte stream. Okay, and what this returns is the byte stream. So if you print this, what you get is this, and this is actually what I wanted to show you guys. This is basically the byte stream. This is what it looks like. Okay, if you want to understand more about how this works and stuff, you can go ahead and look it up. Okay, but basically these over here that you see, these are actually those bytes. Okay, and this is pretty complicated actually, and even I don't fully understand how this works actually, but this is basically a byte representation of the object as I understand it. So yeah, so this is basically what I wanted to show you, because just in case you don't want to be dumping it to a file and you want to use it in your program or something, or send it over a network or something, whatever. And similarly, let me just go ahead and save this somewhere. Okay, I'll call this stream. Okay, and what I want to do basically is pickle.loads. And if you can guess already, and what the description here says, is that it basically takes, for example, the stream, okay, the stream that we had earlier, the binary stream, and this loads in the Python object. So if I create a variable here called new list, and then do the same thing for x in range, new list, and I say x.display, this should be the same thing, and there we go. Okay, so that's basically how we use dumps and loads. Loads just takes the actual object instead of the file stream. Okay, so yeah, I think we've covered, these are like the 4 main functions in Pickle, okay, that you might ever need. There's some other stuff as well, but that's more like extra. If you're interested in it and you want to do something that's really intensive, that uses Pickle a lot, go ahead and look up the Pickle documentation. Okay, I'll include some other links to some resources in the description below, some other related stuff, like how to compress Pickle, Pickle byte streams. That's also a pretty interesting topic. Okay, And besides that, I'll also include a link to the Python dill library, which is basically a Pickle extension. Okay, basically dill is like it's like built on top of Pickle, and dill is basically kind of better than Pickle. Okay, it's like faster, more efficient, and it can pickle some types. Okay, that Pickle can't. Like it can actually serialize some objects that the Pickle library can't. Okay, and this is actually something that I forgot to mention earlier, but Pickle can't actually pickle everything. Okay, there are some things that it can't pickle, and it's pretty strange stuff, by the way. The stuff that it can't pickle, you don't see them in everyday use. Okay, they're like stuff like generators and tracebacks and stuff. This is the kind of stuff that it can't pickle, and I bet you guys don't even know what that is. Okay, and even I barely do, honestly. It's kind of complicated stuff, and the stuff you don't normally use. Okay, so chances are you will never come across that scenario. Okay, but it's still worth taking a look at. Okay, I'll include a link to the Pickle documentation in the description below, so you can go check a full list of that out. And there'll also be a link to my website, which also has all this information over there. Okay, all the code, all the examples, you can find all the related stuff over there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. We've gone on long enough, and hopefully I'll see you guys in some other video later.